Hello and welcome to this lecture. In the previous lecture, you have understood how to insert a new node as a head node, and in this lecture, you will be writing a program in Python for the same. Now, I already have the file open, which is the file from our previous programming exercise which we had done. So what we will do is throughout this section, we will maintain this same file which is named as singly linked list, and we will add methods at the end of every lecture. So from the previous lecture, we had the insert method. I have just renamed it as insert end so as to indicate that we will be inserting at the end of the linked list. Since this lecture handles about inserting a node as the head node, we will have another method called insert head, which will insert a new node at the head position. So let's see how to do that. Now we already have inserted two nodes for this particular program. The node 1 is John and node 2 is Ben. So they are inserted at the end of the list. So the list starts with John and the next of John points to Ben and the next of Ben points to none. So now what we want to do is insert a third node. Let's have this node as Matthew. And the condition is that Matthew needs to go in as the head node. So we need to create a new method. Let's call that method as insert head. And for that we will be passing the third node, which is the one with the data Matthew. So let's go back to our linked list class. Now let's write a new method. Let me call it insert head. And this will accept a new node. Now this new node will have data as Matthew and the next as none. So what we want to do is the next of Matthew needs to point to John. So like we saw in the previous lecture, we could change the head pointer directly. So what will happen is if you say self.head equal to new node, now what will happen is the next of new node needs to point to John, but we have lost the connection to the previous linked list by changing the head node. So before we change the head node, we make sure that we store the previous head node in a temporary node. So let's do that. Let's create a temporary node and assign it with the current head node. Now once we do this, we can change the existing head node to the new node. So now self.head equal to new node means that Matthew is now the head node. Now the next of Matthew, which is in self.head.next, needs to point to the temporary node which we had earlier saved. So temporary node contains John and this node contains Matthew. So now you have assigned Matthew as the head node and the next of Matthew points to temporary node, which means the next of Matthew points to John, and that completes the connection of our linked list. Now since we have completed the connection, we no longer need this temporary node and we can delete this. So now let's save the program and execute it to see if it works as expected. So we open the terminal. And then it's Python 3 space the file name, which is singly linked list.py, and if you're on Windows it is py space the file name. And in case you don't have this terminal installed, you could use the usual terminal that comes with your computer, or if you're in Windows you could use command prompt or PowerShell. So now we see that Matthew has been inserted as the head node. So Matthew is now the first node and John has become the second node. From John the connection has resumed back to the other nodes. So that's the end of this lecture. I'll see you in the next lecture where you will learn how to insert a new node in between two other nodes. Thank you.